Hey, welcome back to another Flexbox tutorial. In this video, we're going to learn how to vertically align our Flexbox elements um, using kind of a standard fixed left side navigation, or maybe this would be a sidebar or something like that. I've made it a fixed navigation. So if I had a lot of content here, I'd be able to scroll up and down, and this would just stay in place. So we have a pretty common structure to these tutorials that I've been showing you as far as the navigation elements. We have a nav tag, and then inside that we have an unordered list with a few list items. And then later on we'll also slap on this site title, and I'll show you how that works. Again, nesting elements, but doing the alignment vertically. So let's get into it. I just have some basic styles here that make sure that this goes the full height of the page, and then this is 150 pixels wide. There's a little bit of padding. I took off the bullets and the padding on the unordered list, and so now our list is ready to be flexed. So let's start again with the unordered list element, and the way we make it a flex container is to say display flex. And so in our horizontal alignment video, I showed you how this was the default. So the default flex value, I guess, is to do flex direction in a row. So that means all the way across the page or all the way across the element. Now, if we want things to be lined up vertically, we have to put on another selector, and we say flex. Property. We say flex direction, and then we don't want it to be row, we want it to be column. Makes sense, right? And vertically in a column. So now our links come back to being in a column, and now we can style them. When we style them, we're styling everything along this y-axis. So one of the difficulties in understanding Flexbox at first is that the justify content and the align items content change based on the flex direction orientation. So if we do before, when we did flex direction, if we added justify content space around, that added space around each of the elements, right? But it did it along this x-axis. Now, what Flexbox does is it only allows you to align items or to manipulate items along one axis. So you're either aligning it along the x, which is horizontal, or you're aligning it along the y, which is vertical. You can't do both at the same time. And because you can't do both at the same time, whenever you change this property here, then it actually reorients the justify content and also the align items properties. So before, justify content would space things out on the horizontal plane, but now when we change flex direction, justify content is now going to justify the content along a vertical axis. So I believe that's right. So when we do align items, and then we do center, it actually centers everything horizontally, as opposed to centering everything before. It centered everything in a vertical fashion whenever we had flex direction row. So you have to just switch these two things in your mind to where they're doing something different than they did whenever you were dealing with them in a row. Okay, and we'll see that at work soon. See it at work soon. So, align items, when it's in a vertical orientation, is going to move it horizontally, and then justify content is going to vertically align everything. All right, so that is a little bit more complicated. So let's just let's get right into the creating a navigation here. So let's put our site title in there. Now we need our nav to also be display flex. And then once we put justify, oh, it also has to be a column. You can see. Let's just copy that. And then now our two items, the H1 and the unordered list, those are all in a column. And then we can begin to apply, let's say, justify content. If we do space between, they should go one to the top and one to the bottom. So just as before, when our orientation was horizontal, we had one on the left and one on the right. Now we have one at the flex start and at the flex end. That's what we should use. Instead of top and bottom or left and right, we should be using the terms the start and the end. So this is the start of the container at the top, and this is the end of the container at the bottom. And you can see that if you draw a straight line, they don't line up, right? So it goes past these. So if we want them all to be in order, perfectly centered, we would say align items, and then we would say center, and centering that is actually going to center all the items inside of this flex container. And so if you draw a straight line through them, now it goes straight through the middle of all of the elements. If we did, you could make it flex end, and then they would all be pushed to the right side. You could do flex start, and they'd all be pushed to that side. And you could even do this is not as relevant now because it's a fixed container that's not very flexible, but you could also do space between or space around, but those aren't really applicable here. But you could do center, and then you could also center everything inside this element. You've seen this as a style before, maybe. And then you would center everything, and then that would give you a nice centered style. So if anybody was to change the vertical orientation of this, like if this was somehow to go past, or someone squeezed, I guess someone squeezed the viewport horizontally, then this would stay in the middle at all times together. Okay, so let's just put this at let's do flex start, and then it just puts it at the top. And then our links, let's see, let's create a little bit of space in there. So for the list items, let's do margin, and instead of left and right space this time, we're going to do top and bottom space, right? So so we create a little space in the vertical between the links. And that's really all there is to it as far as ordering and centering things and aligning things on the vertical axis. What's important to remember is once you add the flex direction column, then justify content and align items become different. So they're the opposite of what they were in the default when this is flex direction row. So that's just one of those strange things about the structure of Flexbox that you just kind of have to remember. And not always easy to remember. But once you begin to get the hang of it, I think your mind will change and you'll begin to think in terms of not left and right, but flex start and flex end. And once you can kind of get that concept in your mind, it'll actually help you to think about things like the justify content and the align items, because when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense that on the vertical axis, when you're aligning the items, um, you're aligning the items in a horizontal fashion. But it's not always obvious at the beginning. All right, well, thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions or comments, if there's something that's a little too tricky, then make sure you leave them in the comments below. And if you haven't watched any of the other videos, I actually have a playlist here of Flexbox videos that I'm showing you with some real world examples like this one, where you can create um, maybe some common web structures or common types of elements using the Flexbox property. I think it'll make your life easier if you just learn the syntax, and it can be used in essentially every well, definitely every modern browser, but essentially every browser handles Flexbox very well. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.